Everyone, amazing day, great day ahead. We are actually launching an amazing work out of my throne. This is the Duchess Initiative. And this is a great initiative because what we're doing, we're looking at from our throne, the royal diaspora monarch, how do we help impact our world today? There's chaos at every turn in every nation, in every household. So, so this initiative is to show people how to get back to living simple lives where every life is valuable. So, as His Royal Majesty, I'm so proud of Duchess Jillian for her initiative, and we're here today, ladies and gentlemen, with three of the top leaders in life-based experts in the world, and we have an amazing show set that's going to deal with intergenerational dialogue. It is the most critical component in any nation in the world is how do your generations connect? And we have three life-based experts here on the three pillars and the why. That's the actual theme of this show today. We have three experts. First, we have Dr. Jean. She is one of the most amazing family individual experts that I've seen in the world. Well, what does that mean, individual family expert? She has life-based evidence of helping families integrate across different challenges that each family has. And see, when we call her a life-based expert, we understand that her expertise is in hearing that individual family and helping them come up with strategies to help solve their issue. So she's one of the best in the world, Dr. Jean. We're so honored to have you in. I'll just go through all the names first, and then we'll have them come back, and each can introduce their narrative. We have Joy Beck, Sandbox Civility, one of the great new people in civility work. Her work, her work, she isn't new. This has been done for 29 years. So her experience as a life-based expert of helping people, kids, and everyone with how to get along. If you would have asked me that question years ago, I would have said, there's no way I would have ever thought that we would have to teach people how to get along again. But all over the world, the missing equation is how to get along. So, Joy, good to have you in this chat as one of our newest life-based experts. We have Chancellor Michael Pitzel with us. She is a faith-based expert. She has created an international seminary and she started her own education and philosophy, Searcherdemics. The one that gets the original idea is the one that's worthy of honor and praise because if it wasn't for a new thought, a new idea, nothing happens in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this group for the intergenerational dialogue, you are sitting in front of the best in the globe that have life-based evidence. I'm gonna turn this over to our first member, to our first voice today will be Chancellor Michael P. Pitzel.
Thank you
Over to
so
you.
much, Royal Majesty. And I want to say a little something about you. You are the father of civility and you are a world civility leader. And that's why you're leading us off. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be on this platform. I've had the honor of working with His Royal Majesty for almost 2 decades now. We're almost there. And I've been in education for at least 30 years. And my degrees include human development, curriculum and instruction, biblical counseling, theology. And I've worked with families and their children. I've worked with college students in all of those years. And so I've been in all the systems. I've been in the world system of education. I've been in private and public sectors. I've gone out on my own and started my own education philosophy. And I have to say that God's education is the most important education that you will receive. And that's what Searcherdemics is. I am the founder of Searcherdemics. It is a new education system that values the individual God ideas in every single person. and it finds the value. We help you see, we help you discover, we help you develop, we help you launch, and we validate God ideas on the earth. I'm also the chancellor of United Graduate College and Seminary International. I have been now for about 16 years, and we've traveled internationally, pioneering online education, pioneering searcherdemics, God's education. I'm just blessed to be here. I'm excited because of who's with us, the other experts here today. We're changing the world. Thank you, Your Majesty.
Thank, thank you so much. And when we use the word expert, we never use it lightly. These people, when these ladies open their mouth today, what's going to come out? I don't know. But these
Amen.
experts are creating brand new paradigms. Joy Beck, Sandbox Civility, over to you.
So my name is Joy Beck, and I have developed the Sandbox Civility Initiative, where I've taken my 29 years of experience in teaching small children and all of the facets that that involves with, as well as raising four children who are contributing citizens in the world, which that alone is kind of a feat at some point. But learning how to teach people how to be nice humans because it's a teachable skill. And I have taken it hands-on, user-friendly, vetted processes that work for 5-year-olds. So they should be able to work with the rest of us. And I'm very, very grateful to be on this platform and to be able to help inspire and give some hope along with these other lovely ladies.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Dr. Jean Caligliano, we are so you exemplify what I would say is a life-based expert because it's one thing to have theory on a piece of paper, but what does it look like to walk things into reality? And Dr. Jean, you have done that. You are truly an expert in what I call family integration. You help families learn because each case is unique. So, Gene, tell us a bit about yourself, and we're honored to call you and name you as an expert because any three of you women on here, I would come to you for expert advice as a king. Over to you, Dr. Jean.
Greetings, Your Royal Highness. It is truly an honor to be counted among you here at this table and be a part of this conversation. It is true that I grew up in transit over my lifetime until my early 20s, and I started by deciding I needed a GED, and from there I went on into the military. I've raised a family. I've opened more than one business. So as you identified across the board, I have had the opportunity, but it was in my late 40s or in my 40s when I returned back to education because I learned that transformation isn't just about the life that we've learned, but it's also about having the tools that are needed to be able to function as citizens or as people in value. So how does that relate today? People need hope. Families need guidance. And communities need shared language rooted in respect, listening. And that means that they need to be seen, heard, and we need some common language. So today I get the opportunity to work with a different different ages at different and help them communicate, see the vision, and move forward in the way that they'd like to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Your
Dr.
Royal
Jean. Now,
Highness.
Chancellor Michael, guys, I'm ready to go. Can somebody explain to me what three pillars and a why is? Okay, because it's important that the audience understand what are the three pillars and a why. I love that name. Chancellor Michael, could you explain three pillars and a why?
Absolutely. This came about as we were collaborating as a team, and really the things that we saw, the three of us ladies saw as important things to bridge generational gaps came out. And the first one is communication. The second one is listening, and the third one is vocabulary. And so each of us are going to talk about that, but I want this to be interactive. So if I'm saying something, I want to hear from the other ladies because we spur one another on. We have different perspectives. I only come from my perspective, and that's one huge part of the first pillar, communication, is we have to realize that we're all coming from different perspectives. We all have different histories. We have different backgrounds. We can see the same thing in three different ways and four different ways as you join our conversation, Your Majesty. So that's huge. That's where the three pillars came from. And then the why, you know, if you've worked at all with this younger generation, the younger generations that are living on the earth right now, they're going to ask you why. It's important to them. And they need to understand the why to have buy-in. And so explaining the why is really important. And I know that maybe some generations would say, you know what, just do it just because we said so. But there's a new generation who's 100% of our future. They're going to ask the why. And you know what? I've made part of my motto, if we can't answer the why, then it's not worth doing. If we don't have a good
Wow.
why, it's not
Right.
worth doing. And so the why is essential to the three pillars.
Very great. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get down to the meat. We have
Yeah.
experts on the stage today. I'm gassed up. The jets are ready to go. Here's the first question. We have intergenerational division,
Mhm.
and it is so divisive in every nation of the world. It is like the old generation is trying to enforce upon the old what they did. The actual young generation has watched failures. I had a kid tell me, he goes, I don't want that life. So there's a big divide. What do you see is the reason for the divide? And I'll start with you, Chancellor Michael, first.
I have to go back to it comes down to communication and the understanding that the perspective I'm coming from is completely different than, for example, a perspective that my niece is coming from. She did not experience what I experienced growing up. She has a different history, a perspective. And so without communication, we can't understand one another and where we're coming from. And what I'm trying to say, she might already know, or she doesn't even need to know it. She's ready to move on. And I've heard you say this, Your Royal Majesty, the younger generation, our ceiling is their floor. And we need to remember that, or else we are going to have this headbutting. They're like, but we're not even there. So I think that communication piece, and if the other ladies want to speak about that, from their perspectives, from the listening perspective, the vocabulary perspective. I think that's huge, but it comes down to a communication breakdown.
Thank you so much. Dr. Joy, over to you.
So to add on to what Dr. Michael said, the communication is one part, and another part is that listening, because that's part of that communication. And we oftentimes think we're listening, but we're hearing what we want to hear. And with the multi-generational, where those gaps are is often the older generation, and I qualify, I'm more on that end than the other, that we were raised you do it because you're told, like she referenced. And so that's those habitual patterns of this is how it is and this is how we should do. Kids aren't like that. My children, that did not work with my children. And that did not work when I was in the classroom. And they needed to know those whys, but they also needed to be heard as well as spoken to with respect. Growing up, there was that hierarchy. And it was what it was. It wasn't good, bad, or ugly. It was what it was. And yet, I think one of the gaps or the reasons for the gaps is because the older generation aren't feeling respected because they're not being listened to and blindly obediently doing what they're telling. And the younger generation are not being respected. There's that gap. And listening is a key factor to that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you
I
so
think,
much.
Dr. Jean, could you talk about, because I remember you saying something about respect. That word respect has huge to do with vocabulary and our understanding of that word.
Absolutely. Thank you. You've identified the pillar that I'm carrying today is vocabulary. And I did want to go ahead and speak directly to respect, as she brought that word up. Shared vocabulary is essential for our families and individuals to be able to speak, listen, and be heard. So, for example, the word respect, the younger generation would look at it like respect means I want to be heard. So it still goes back to that. I want to be heard. I want to be seen. Whereas depending on which generation you're choosing, there's the generation that would believe that respect means you just do what I say. Don't ask questions. Don't even look at me like you want to ask a question. Just get up and go do it. And it's difficult with us being in our different generations and watching it. And example, yesterday, even at my son's house, there was a situation where my grandson was asked to do something and he questioned his dad right in front of me. I didn't even know what to say, but I did inside. So these are where those conversations about the vocabulary, because it was specifically, in that case, it was about the respect and the different beliefs. My son says, do. My youngest, my grandson said, but Dad, right? I want you to hear what I got to say about it. So vocabulary is a major piece to the communication point. Thank you.
Wow, that if you don't mind me interjecting, I have a question. I've seen people that, as we say, they want to be heard. I have another equation I've seen. When they want to be heard, sometimes they want you to do what they say. So that's a problem I see with people that say, I want to be heard. So I think there's a difference between heard and you. Well, I was watching a show where this one kid he had got arrested. It was a show. It was a cop show. He arrested, and he told the truth, and he goes, and the cop said, "That's great. I'm taking you to jail." The guy goes, "Wait, hang on, hang on. I told you this." He goes, "Wait, there's still a consequence for what you did." He goes, "But I told you." So I think at times, and anyone you can speak to this issue, being being heard. What's the difference between being heard and people wanting you to do what they said? Because many times you listen and they still get mad after they're heard.
Absolutely.
I can speak to that.
Good
Great.
point.
I think when people, with listening, we listen with that agenda in the back end of what we're going to say next and what our agenda is. And if you have someone like, as far as your example, like they just wanted it and there are consequences. And what I've found, especially with the younger generation, it's like, it's a little trickier for them to own up. I call it owning your junk, own up to what you've done. You can't just put stuff or say things and go, "Oh, just kidding," right? Because that happens. That's a default. That's a way of getting the dig in, so to speak.
Mm.
In going, "Oh, just kidding." No, really, there's what comes out of our mouth. There is some truth to all of it. So our words matter. And I think if we can't own our actions or aren't willing to at least look at them, it makes it tricky to be able to communicate because we want everyone to think our way. And as Dr. Michael said, in our perspective, and we're not going to. But if we're open to listening and opening to having that communication with clear vocabulary, it makes it better. It can improve.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a communication. I want to be heard. It's two-way. People need to understand it's a two-way highway. It's a two-way conversation. That other person wants to be heard as well. And
Mm.
what we're talking about doesn't just happen common sense. It needs to be taught. People need to be taught explicitly how to hear. Um, how to be heard, but also there's somebody on the other side of that conversation that also needs to be heard. And there's a communication thing, and that's where I think a lot of those gaps form. Is we're just thinking about ourselves. We're not thinking
Mm.
about, and we're even thinking that I just communicated this very clearly. I've been through this in my life. I communicated that so clearly, and they still didn't get what I was trying to say. And
Mm.
that right there in perspective is something I had to learn. I had to relearn how to communicate. It's not about, I have to take into consideration the other person. And so that being heard situation, I totally hear you, Royal Majesty, is a problem. It needs to be taught that there's another person on the other side of that conversation.
Well, and
Best
Dr.
part
Gina,
is, sorry.
good. Dr. Gina, I would love to have you speak to that from a vocabulary
I would
standpoint.
like that. Thank you very much. Across generations, the same words that are used, but they're understood differently. So we can be speaking the right language and they could be hearing the right words, but their definition is where some of the breakdown
Mhm.
is. Historically, over generations, we've used words and language and stories to carry on our heritages and our cultures. So without those common understandings of those words, how can we even envision what has been and what we want to be if we don't have a common language to begin with? So yes, communication is important. Listening is important, but the root of it, I believe, is understanding that the words are common language between the two people or the groups that are
Mm.
having the communication breakdown.
Wow. Joy, did you want to input on that?
I was just going to add that the best part, it's teachable.
Yeah.
Being able to improve communication and improve listening and improve vocabulary, it's all teachable. That's the best part. It's not a hopeless cause. That's what gets me
Mm.
going all the time.
That's really great. That's great because I had a gentleman one time. He asked a kid, "What does respect mean?" I'm shocked that you don't have respect. And he asked a kid, "What does respect mean?" He goes, "Respect means the baddest guy in the neighborhood." That's respect. So I think with this like generational divide, and the other person thought it was being courteous and kind to someone because they're older. So I think, see, this is why I love this like intergenerational thing, because I said this, people don't know what they don't know. And even I discovered this recently that even when I'm going to say something that I think everyone ought to know, they don't know it because their backstory created a lens. So so now next question. What do you guys think? How do we overcome this? How how do we overcome this in real time? Not not pie in the sky. How do we overcome this for a better world? And and I want to add another question. Who do you think has to bend the most in this?
Good question.
Chancellor
I'll
Michael.
start off. I mean, we need to come up with a common ground, a buy-in, which is where the why comes in. Uh, you know, we need to start seeing the value in the other side of the conversation. We
Mm.
need to see the value in the other generations. And once we see the value and can put aside the differences, like really hunt for the value, now we'll start to see through a new lens, and that'll give us the why. Um, there are things I believe with the searchodemic point of view that every person adds value, can solve as a solution to a problem. I believe that for the generations. So what can I learn from Generation Z? What do they have to offer
Mm.
that no other generation has ever offered? That's exciting to me when I look at it from that perspective. So I think if we can come to a common ground of let's look for value, what's going to add value, and changing our lens of, you know, it's going to hell in a handbasket or whatever. Let's change that perspective and just see how it works. I dare you to just try to find the value.
Very good. Joy.
I love the idea that when we really look for that why, because when there's that disconnect, at the end of the day, the older generation or the elder generation really wants to share what they've learned and we want better for our kids than what we went through, right? I remember learning about the Great Depression from my parents that my grandparents went through, and they never wanted that to happen again. So there were things that they taught us that were applicable to my life so that I could be in a better space and not have to suffer like they did. And I really do believe the older generation want to share that and to show that why, the value of why it's important to learn from those that are older than us. But the flip side, to see the value of what we can learn from younger generations. Just because they're young doesn't mean they're dumb. They get things so much faster. They get a different perspective that I'm like, oh, okay. There's so much that we can learn from each other if we're willing to listen. And when you asked about who bends the most, I really do believe if we're willing to, the older generation needs to bend. We're more rigid. We're the ones that it's the my way or the highway. And that's kind of the tricky part is, are we willing to bend? And it goes back to that why. If it's really important, you'll consider it.
Very good. Gina, I want to give you a perspective on this same question. Okay. I had a kid that told me one time, he goes, listen to my parents. He goes, they told me to go to school, get an education, and get a good job, and I'd be good. But I'm watching their life. They did it. They're miserable. They aren't successful. So why should I listen to them? Guys, these are real questions that people ask. So I hear this stuff, and they're going, I watch their life. I don't want their life. So, Dr. Dean, how would you deal when, like, say a parent may not have good evidence and results, and they're trying to tell their kid what to do to be better, and they throw it back at you and say, like you?
Very
Talk
much
to
the
me.
conversation I heard at the table yesterday with my grandson and my son. I believe that it begins at the very youngest of age, as identified. Who do we start with? I believe everybody has a part in it, and I don't believe that there's any one generation that has more of a part. I believe that collectively we need to come together for the future generations to come, as well as the youth that are growing up in the generation, because we want them to be able to know that they are valuable. So going back to the question of how would we, well, we need to start with, if we aren't at the very beginning of our family, the families that we have, we need to do what we can to bring them to that table and sit them down and start with one word. For example, I came up with this idea. It's called One Word, One Meaning Family Practice. If we have to start with one word, let's sit down with one word and each of us give what our definition of that one word is. So that and there's no judgment in the definition of the word. There's, for example, the word respect. There's no judgment in the definition. We've all gathered our definition based on our experiences, whether we're 5 years old or we're 50 or even above that. The goal is to come up with a common ground so that we can start to come up with a solution to how do we move forward. And yes, we can look at the history, we could look at the future, but we need to start right now and see what is it that we can do to adjust so that our roadmap that we've created now with our words, because again, we start with one word, And with that one word, we will build on top of them. I have a list of words that are suggested, but at the same point, the families are going to have to come to the beginning of what is the one word that has one meaning, so they can move forward with one vision as a family, and then as a community, and then as a nation and a global impact as a whole.
Man, this is great. Let me tell you guys, are you guys enjoying this? I'm
Yes.
really enjoying this here, because let me tell you what I think is an important component as well. I think many times it comes back down to the like definition of words. How do you think a non-tech individuals in the older generation, they I've watched them blast the kids for being on social media, for being this, that, and and the other. We need to talk more, we need to communicate more. That could be true. But I had a friend teach me a concept. He said there are three M's that move this world: media, music, and mentorship. And he says from a technological standpoint, that phone, that phone is the mentor of the children. That phone is the mentor. They're mentored by the music that they listen to. They're mentored by the media, and they're mentored by their mentors. So with the mentor changing
Mhm.
from the older generation to a phone,
Mhm.
can someone speak to the like challenges with that, the good and the bad?
I have to say,
Yeah.
it's not just mentoring the younger generation. You look up and you look around, and all the parents, I mean, the grandparents have to learn to use it to communicate with their grandkids. Every human, doesn't matter what
Mm,
generation, you're being impacted by social
mm,
media and by that
mm,
phone.
mm.
If
Man,
you, especially if you want to stay
Right.
relevant. Not to say that's good, bad, that's just a fact. Um,
yes,
so I'm a strong believer in generation people to learn have to see,
yes,
and they have this thing and they can see it and it's instant feedback, so they're learning like crazy. Okay, but what are they seeing? So go back to the parent who's the kid who said, I don't want to be like my parents because what I see, I don't want to turn. We've got to figure out how to recreate role models to become a better role model. People need to see a better role model, and that's part of the initiative for the of like searchodemics, for example. When you create a new culture or anything like that, you need people to see it. So
yeah.
you got to put it in front of their face. So that is a solution. And now we need to start doing that more and more. They need role models.
Wow. That's great. And I want to interject something
Yeah.
really quickly. Now, one kid said, my parents only mentor me out of their fear. He says,
Mm,
what can I do?
come on.
What can I do? And they tell me what I can't do. What can I do? That's a major equation in this. So if the mentorship is only from don't. I remember I was mentoring a kid. I was pastoring a kid, and he asked me a question, and I go, no, don't. He said, is that out of your faith or out of your fear?
Right.
I go, young man, that's out of my fear. He said, just because you failed doesn't mean I am.
Come
Does
on.
anybody want to tackle that question?
I will, if that's all right. I like love the idea that there can be that mentorship, and it makes sense that our default might be, if you're a certain age and above, it might be from that fear base, because as I referenced, like with my grandparents, they lived in really harsh times that I don't even understand. I didn't have to go through that. And the things that I've done, my kids haven't gone through. And so that fear-based is almost like on autopilot, or can be for us. However, to be able to
Mm,
have that mentorship, and it is, when you talked about the media and our phones, there are times when you go, as a teacher, we would have kids come in and they talk about this. Oh, they were playing a new game on the playground, right? And then we find out that it was not a good game and it was mean and it had but it was in cartoon form, right? And it came up on like YouTube or whatever social platform. I don't remember, but there was a couple of them that it was in cartoon form. So, oh yeah, that's good. And parents were, oh, they're just watching a cartoon. And yet there was some mean stuff
Mm,
that they were pushing through that
mm,
platform. So as a parent or a teacher, it was always that concern of is where's the intention behind it? Now we can't
mm,
control everything. What it goes back to is teaching those kids where their worth is and to know, okay, is that something that feels good? Is that something that honors where you're at? And going the words respect. I loved the idea that Dr. Jean said about that one word because it creates a safe place for people to share. Well, I think it's this, and I think it's this. And to be able to have it be safe enough to go, well, I don't think that. I think of this, and have it be a safe environment to open those conversations. But media is something that we learn so much. It can be for good, but it doesn't have to be for bad the whole time.
very good. Dr. Jean.
Yes, I'd like to add to that. One of the questions that you posed was, how is the media, now in many cases, the mentor, how is that a good thing and a bad thing? Well, in the classroom, when I'm having students define vocabulary, it makes it much easier for me to send them on their device. They trust that. They know the places where to go to find the information they're looking for. And I know that if I give them one word, I'm going to get anywhere from 4 to 10, depending on the size of the group, different definitions, whether they be verbs or nouns or adjectives. They all can be the same word, but a different expression. So that the mentor that they're using the devices is a good tool, but at the same point, it's got a lot of distractions. So if we could, I say it, the word says to train them up in the way they should go. Well, first off, we need to model it. As you identified, there's a lot of adults, teachers, parents, grandparents that are misusing the media as a form already, teaching their children in the wrong ways to do it. So how do you give them freedom? Not tell them don't, tell them do, 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 do. And if you let them do, they will come up with the roadmap to get them where they want to based on what they know of values. And how do they know their values? They need somebody to help them discover those talents that were given to them before they were ever born, those gifts, the value that they carry before they even are born. That's
Wow.
Can I add
No,
just a practical example, Your Majesty?
yes.
When people are handling money and they're trying to teach people how to determine if it's counterfeit or not, they don't give them the false example, right? They give them the real example of what real money feels like, and they get really familiar with the real the real bill. And when it comes to teaching and learning, we want to give examples of do. What do we do? And if you ask a group of children, what does this look like? Or how do we do this? You'll hear them come up with a bunch of don'ts. That just tells us that that's what we've been giving them their whole lives, are all the don'ts. And so to train your mind to go, wait, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, what do we do? What does
mm,
this look like? What's the real, not the
mm,
counterfeit? So you're talking about that fear, coming from that fear base. If we come from we need to teach every generation, what does it look like? That's that role model. Stop talking about what it doesn't look like, because that's the image you're putting in their heads. In all of our heads, we have that image of fear. What image are we building? Fear or what we should be doing?
mm, mm. Now I have a question. How, how does this work in the classroom of life?
Uh-huh.
The classroom of life. It's one thing to have a controlled environment where people are a captive audience to you as an instructor. to you as an educator. Tell me, how do we bring change in the classroom of life?
When my nephew freaks out because he made a huge mess in the kitchen and I see he was doing it because he was trying something new, instead of jumping down his throat, he's like, I'm sorry, like, oh, you made a mistake. And when I make a mistake, I have to model how not to freak out in front of him because whatever I'm doing, he's going to parrot. That's one huge life thing. I believe that anybody who deals with children is going to become a better person if they come from that perspective. It's a good way to
Yeah.
work on yourself.
Yeah. Now I want to put and how to deal with older adults. How would you say that?
With older
Because what
adults,
you gave a child perspective.
I did
Now
in
this is
life.
the classroom of life. Go
Hmm.
ahead. Now, how does the older side? What does that look like for them?
It's hard. It's harder. It's more challenging, as Dr. Joyce said. Um, as adults, we're more stuck in our ways and we're less bendable. It just is. It's just a brain thing. It's just how we're made. It's nobody's fault. And I think, again, we have to give them a why. What are we working towards? What's our common ground when it comes to adults? They have to care enough because they have to change. We have to change. I have to change as an older generation person how I view things and how I've looked at things. And there's synapses that I need new places to go. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of repetition. So I have to really care about why I'm making that change. And so that's a great question. It's something you have to catch. You have to put in mechanisms and you have to catch it and you have to find a mechanism to go in its place each time. And it takes work.
That's great. And then Joy, over to you. But I have a thing I wanted to add. A friend of mine that has an organization that he started care ready responders. He was working with different social workers, and he realized in the midst of actually training them, they were messed up, and they used their information to really get therapy for themselves.
Mm.
So they were so sometimes as teachers, as lecturers, as these people, sometimes we know what to say, but is it therapy for them or does it make us feel better? Is it therapy for us? So I think that's a real question. Gene, I see a smile on your face, and then Joy will come back and have you respond to that.
Well, as we've been working through this, I have definitely taken a look at my own family as identified earlier in my own son's house yesterday when I was visiting. I believe that when families reclaim shared definitions, communication becomes clearer. Listening will improve and civility will be restored. So a common vocabulary gives families a shared map, even when perspectives differ.
Very good. Very good. Joy.
I'm going to tag onto it. Dr. Michael had said, as adults, and then I'll go back to the other, as adults, if we're over a certain age, making mistakes had very much a negative connotation.
Hmm.
It was, you weren't allowed to, and there was lots of shame and
Wow.
disgrace that were, you had to be perfect. And it was very unrealistic expectations. And yet we all can think of that, right? And as you were asking about how we do it as adults, one of the things I loved doing in my classroom for so many years was I would show a pencil and go, what? You know that my favorite part is that eraser because everyone makes mistakes and it's okay. And we can learn from it. And yet that same concept can be with adults. And where you asked, where do we start? We start with ourselves and we start with our group, our girlfriend group or our buddies, that you go to grab coffee with, and when someone messes up, you say, man, oh, you're human. Okay. you know, and you keep going because it gives permission, especially if you're older than a minute, it gives permission to make a mistake and that you're not going to have that group shame because it's someone messed up. We all mess up. But being able to graciously own it and to have a buddy when we're
Mm,
in that moment to go for Dr.
mm,
Matt to go, oh, it's okay, Joy. What did you learn from it? Right. And to flip that script of what can we learn? Because we learn from both good and bad.
mm, mm.
Can I add to
Yes,
that?
yes.
What I did here is very important, but the root part is another part of it, rather would be the forgiveness, because there's where the cap is for myself. As I've identified, the reason this is at my heart, the family's speaking in civility, is because of my own lived experience. And it took me a long time to forgive myself and to not feel that shame that's attached to ourselves when we get some of that
Mm,
upbringing, as you just identified, from the older generation, as I could fall into as well. So part of that is that forgiveness of self as well to add to that. Thank you for those parts, though.
man, this has been fantastic. I love this because see, we're asking real questions. We're asking real time questions, and I think, one of the things that I've seen education become something people hide behind. They hide behind education because I've seen people that can't be wrong. If you can't be wrong, you're not ministering to people. It's okay to be wrong because they're watching you dance out of
Mhm.
everything that could make you look bad. So I'm giving you the real. I've seen people that can't be wrong. So that, oh, it's an excuse. So at times you wonder why kids make excuses. It's because
Mhm.
sometimes the person leading makes excuses. So people model what you do, not what you say. So
Yes.
this is important. So that's why these conversations, this is a phenomenal talk. This is getting down to the like brass tacks of it. And ladies and gentlemen, we're done right now because I'm gonna leave you hungry for the next month. Ladies, thank you so much. Now you understand why we have life-based experts. And thank you so much. I'm not even going to give you an actual closing thought because I don't want anyone to miss next month. They're going to finish their closing thought next month. Thank you, ladies, so very much. This was fantastic, eye-opening, and I believe that we hit real issues. Thank you for being on the Duchess Initiative. Thank you.
And I do want to
Thank you.
say, I want to verify that we will be doing this every month. So please come back and view, and we're excited for this opportunity. Thank you, Your Majesty, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.